Hi, welcome back to Slick Willy Fly. And today what we're going to do is an improved redfish toad. So recently I made a video where I made these marabou redfish toad using marabou and polar chenille. And they're awesome and they came out great. But in that video we talked about how we can make redfish toads using fin raccoon, craft fur, bucktail. We can use all kind of different materials. So I decided I wanted to make another one. And what I have here in the vise is a pretty awesome variant. I'm going to pull it out here and show it to you. This is a fin raccoon and purple EP fiber blend. And of course it will swim hook side up. I used some really cool purple and hot pink silly legs. And I put a Weedguard on this one. And I mean, this thing is just awesome. So I think we should make another one. And for the video that I'm about to make, I'm going to use black fin raccoon for the tail. I'm going to use gray EP fiber for the body. And I'm going to use chartreuse silly legs for the silly legs and a bead chain. And I'll probably put another Weedguard on. So, hope you have your cocktail. Don't forget hit the like and subscribe. Perfect chance right now while I change the camera angle. Go hit that like and subscribe and let's make a video. Alright, so I forgot to mention I'm using this long shank size 4 Mustad stainless steel hook, which I can't remember. I can't actually see the number anymore. It's so old and faded, this little box. For thread I'm using 140 denier, and I forgot to mention that I'm going to use a little bit of silver Krystal flash. So I hope I have enough thread on this bobbin to finish this fly, but we're going to roll with it. So one thing I'm also going to do on this fly, when I start making the body of this fly, it's just repeat and repeat and repeat. So just to make this video a little bit more, shorter, friendly, I guess, I'm gonna probably fast forward through a section of the body. Okay, so our first material will be a little bit of Krystal flash in silver. I didn't really pre-prep anything for this video, which now I'm regretting. So I got a couple of strands of Krystal flash, which I'm just going to fold. I'm actually going to just fold them onto the thread. And they get locked in right at the back of the hook. And the goal, when I put the fin raccoon on, the goal is that the fin raccoon is going to go wrap all around the Krystal flash. So now I need a piece of fin raccoon. And I really didn't want to pre-prep too much. So the fin raccoon that I have comes with this little leather patch. So I'm just going to take a clump, a decent clump, nothing too big. That's plenty right there. That little clump right there is plenty. And I'm just going to cut it off of the patch. And I'm going to go ahead and use the entire clump, because this isn't like craft fur where if you thin out the bottom that it just is more useful. This stuff, if you thin it out, there's like nothing left. I'm just going to work it around the hook with my fingers. You saw what I did. I did 2 wraps like I always do. And now I want to just make sure that I've worked it around the hook. Just double checking that it's good coverage around the hook, around that crystal flash, and now I'm just going to lock that nice and hard. Okay. Perfect. So the next step is the dumbbell eyes. In this case, I'm going to use bead chain. And remember, when you cut bead chain, you never ever use your scissors, because it'll destroy your scissors. You always cut bead chain with your wire cutters. And then the bead chain has this little, whenever you cut it, it has this little tag. And I always take a second and remove that tag with my wire cutters. So where do I want the bead chain? About the length of the bead chain is about where I want them. So I just start them. A few wraps in both directions. Making sure they're centered, squared, and looking good, like they are. And once I'm happy with the position, and I am, then I just give them those locking wraps. And now we're ready to start doing the body. The first step in the body is the rubber legs. You know, at this point, you also can decide whether or not you want to give this fly any additional flash. I don't. I think this fly has enough with those 4 strands. So for rubber legs, I chose these chartreuse silly legs, and I'm going to put 2 on each side. So I'm just going to pop 2 off. I don't normally do it that way. Run the risk of breaking stuff when you do it that way. In fact, I'm not going to do that. I'll do it the right way. That's to not be lazy. Grab a pair of scissors and just trim them off. Just like that. So all I'm going to do is put these on my thread, you know, as evenly as I can. I'm going to end up trimming them, but you know, so that they don't look too bad. And right on the side of the hook, just like that. Beautiful. And now the same thing on the opposite side. You don't have to worry about these little tags because you're going to trim them up later. You're going to cut them to length. And make sure I like the location, which I do. Alright, so now the next step is the EP body, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut EP fiber into about 3/4 of an inch, half an inch, because you end up trimming up the EP fiber into this redfish toad shape. So you don't really need long sections. You don't need much at all. This is really truly a case where less is more. So right now I'm just cutting EP fiber, and this is the part that is going to be very repetitive, so we'll probably fast forward through a good chunk of this. But we'll show you the first one. Maybe I'll show you the first 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of EP fiber, just like you see here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the hook, spin that so my thread wraps the way I want it. I'm going to put that on the hook, couple of wraps, pull that back the way I want it to sit, Making sure everything sits the way you want it to sit. Just gotta take your time here. Put everything where it's supposed to go. And then a couple of wraps the opposite direction. And I like to bring it all back, a wrap or two in front. And the first one is done. Then I have this little tool. It's a little girl's hair clip. And what I like to do is I like to hold everything back and out of the way while I get the next clump of EP. And we're just going to do the exact same thing. And the way that this ends up looking nice is you got to make the wraps, you got to make the clumps sit close together. That's the whole trick here. The closer together you get these clumps, the nicer this fly is going to look. So I think at this point, I'm just going to fast forward. Okay, so that's pretty much the tying portion. I'm just going to put a whip finish in, and then it's the trimming portion of the fly. I'm going to use a little UV resin, so I don't really need to put a second whip finish in. Alright, so for the trimming portion of this fly, basically, like I showed you here, we're going for this little shape. So what I like to do is I like to come in with a little bit longer scissor so I can do this in one stroke, and I like to just, it's a little bit hard to explain, but I just come in on a diagonal, try to get everything on one stroke, just like that. And of course, from here, we'll start the fine tuning. And now I'm going to do the same. I'm going to come in on a diagonal, making sure I don't get my rubber legs, making sure I don't cut something that I don't want to cut. And just going to do this in one stroke, just like that. Now, remember, like I've said in a lot of videos, cut slow, take your time, because once you cut it, you can't put it back. But now I'm just going to do some fine tuning, and I don't really need to do the fine tuning for the video. I mean, you get the point. Just going to thin this out a little. Make sure that it swims the way I want it to swim. And the last and super important piece of this is I'm going to go ahead and trim the rubber legs. And the way I like to trim the rubber legs is first I like to get them isolated. I don't want the rubber legs, I don't want to stretch them. If I stretch them, then they will be too short. But I want them about half the tail length. So I don't want them super long. So that's about the distance I want them. It's hard to get everything out of the way, but you need to just take your time and get everything out of the way. And that's about the length that I want them, right there. And that's gonna just give me a lot of really cool action. As far as the Krystal Flash, I want them to be a little shorter than the tail. I like to cut them individual so that they're not the same length. It's only 4 of them anyway. And that's the fly. I'm going to for sure do a little bit more trimming, but basically that's the fly. Alright, so there it is. This is a fly that's going to ride hook up. And I think it came out great. It's got some really cool features, some really cool colors. That shape, I'll probably trim this up a little bit more. One last thing that we can do here, we could put a Weedguard on, and then we could put the UV resin on. So I'm going to go ahead and reattach my thread. And quickly put a Weedguard on. I have this hard mono, which I'll cut with my wire cutters because I don't want to damage the my scissors. This stuff is really hard. Had this for a little while. The package that it came in got damaged, so I have it in a little Ziploc bag now. And what I like to do on this fly, I did a double. I go ahead and put an easy single on this one. So I'm just going to take this little plier that has, it's just flat, it's not a cutter. And I'm just going to put a little flat spot and a little bend. And all I'm going to do is I put that little flat spot right on the hook, right where I want it to go. And that gives me a great little spot to lock in the hard mono. Just like that. Put a wrap or two behind just to keep it a little stiffer. And now it's a whip finish. Go ahead and cut off my thread. So now I am going to get my UV resin going. Make this knot bulletproof. You don't need very much at all. Just a little bit on the knot. A little bit between the eyes. And basically, it really makes this fly extremely durable. Once you're happy with that, I am. So just zap it. And you can always trim the length of that. I always make them a hair long, and then I could trim the length later. I can always trim them when I'm fishing. So this is a good example of you're only limited by your imagination when we talk about colors. This is going to be a great fly. Fin Racoon. You've heard me talk about it in other videos. It's awesome. It doesn't foul as much as craft fur. But this particular kind of fly here, I can't imagine you'd have a big problem with craft fur fouling. But I think that came out great. Super happy with the way this turned out. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Don't forget to have a cocktail with me. Don't forget Slick Willy is on Instagram. Look me up on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck catching. See you on the next video.